thank you for the patience. So, as I said before, District Foundry was kind enough to let Gold Squadron, for the purposes of the paint cast, utilize their design for a 3D hyperspace ring. So we're gonna paint up this Plo Koon just like this, and we're gonna have this little. We're gonna paint up the hyperspace ring along with it, and we're gonna be continuing on. So tonight, if you are going to paint along, this is what. Did we freeze? Hi. Did we freeze? So anyway, I don't think we froze. I was just sitting on there, just talking. So, freeze. I didn't actually freeze. Okay, back online. Huh, weird. Because it's not showing it. Okay, so, I mean, before we get into painting, so it's not showing me any drop frames. I'm just wondering what exactly is going on. Yeah. Audio. Oh, audio was cut. Oh, that's just me. Hold on for just a second. Let me finish. No. The thing didn't fail. Just give me a second. Hold on. Two clicks and we're back in business. Hey, okay. So, it helps if in OBS if I actually add the microphone. So we're gonna I'm gonna just quickly go over everything that I just talked about. For the base coats, I'm using Vallejo paints tonight. You don't have to use Vallejo paints if you have a color. Just get close on your color. There's an audio lag. I'm not synced. Well, dang it. I wonder how far am I not synced? Is it like, am I not synced to the point that it's annoying? Like, I really want to paint Plo Koon tonight, but if the stream is bad, then we need to figure out what's going on with the stream. And you guys can all be my guinea pigs. Because, you know, obviously I make changes and then I test them, but then I'm not sure exactly, like things like audio are kind of harder to determine. Okay, so there's an audio lag. Is it wrong I'm laying on the couch watching Devil Wears Prada? No, man, definitely not. It's noticeable, but not the worst. It's improving. Okay. So is the microphone ahead or behind? Okay, it seems better now. Okay, well, I guess if it seems better now, then we'll go with it. Seems good. Behind. Okay, so the audio's behind. So I'll make a note as we kind of move forward. Say roll with it. All right, so we're gonna roll with it, even though we're I guess a little bit behind on the audio. So I apologize for that. We'll make it work, and we'll fix it for next week. Because like most of painting, it's not just about how it's not about how you do things really well. It's about how you deal with things that go wrong. So just like every part of life. So I'm going to use right now, I'm going to use some liquid mask. And what we're going to do with the liquid mask first is just mark off that little Jedi symbol there. So I'm going to put a little bit of liquid mask in my wet palette. Okay. I'm gonna take my detail brush. I'm just gonna put some mask onto and it's okay if you overlap where the yellow is a little bit. It's not a big deal. The reason you'll have to go back in and touch it up anyway once we finish the paint job. What this liquid mask does is it puts a layer between where we're gonna paint and the symbol, and allows us to really see what's or allows us to maintain that symbol with a minimal amount of effort. Okay, so we're gonna let that dry for just 2 seconds, and while we're doing that, yeah, it's amazing. Just talk like you're in a Japanese translated movie. Okay. All right. So let's get the airbrush up and running while this is drying a little bit. Liquid mask is pretty useful. So if you haven't tried it out, I strongly suggest that you should. We're gonna use the Sotar 2020. Make sure you keep yours all clean, ready to go. I'm gonna be at about 20-25 psi, something like that for this. We're gonna move to a dark Prussian blue. So this is not an airbrush ready paint, so we definitely want to make sure that we thin it out. So put a couple drops in, put a couple drops into the paint, and a couple drops of airbrush thinner. We might need to add more, but that's okay. It's much better to add, to have, for a base color, it's good to have a little paint so that we can add more later than it is to have a lot of paint and we have to get rid of some. So what we're gonna do is we'll start, I'm just putting some air just on this liquid mask, let it set for a second. We're gonna base coat the ring, okay? Oh, I have this whole thing. Yeah, District Foundry supplied the 3D model. They're very talented. I don't know if these are for sale, But they're allowing Gold Squadron to print it. So remember, when you're airbrushing, just kind of be really gentle with it. Give it a nice, good, a good solid base coat. Always keep that brush moving. Okay, don't let the paint pool up on you. I had pre-primed this. You definitely want, if you haven't, with things that you print out. Oh, that took way more paint than I anticipated. So if you haven't already, if you're printing something out on a 3D printer, or if you're using just base plastic, you definitely want to prime your models. We're not going to prime this Jedi model. The blue is going to go over the gray and the yellow really quickly, or really easily. So no need to prime. On X-wing ships, if your base color is way darker than your regular color, just wash the model with warm soapy water and let it dry fully, and you'll be good to go. Oh yeah, I have the final design, right? So, well, I was not anticipating with the new camera having lag issues, so I apologize for that. That's stressing me out just a little bit. So if I seem a little frantic as we move forward, it's not you. It's just me thinking about this this lag problem and why I'm having it. Okay. I'm just kind of trying to get a good base on the whole model here. It's not going to be perfect, but as long as we can get it as close as possible, that'd be great. Okay, you want to make sure that if you're wearing gloves, that you're just barely touching the model, because your gloves will pull some of the paint, and you don't want to accidentally leave like streak marks. Okay. So now with this, the liquid mask on this and having that dried, we're just gonna spray the whole model blue. Oh, just need just a little more paint wherever I put it. If I put it where it was supposed to go, then it would have been fine. But oh, there it is. Don't accidentally spray Annie. Yeah, I'll try not to. If not, that was easy enough to paint, and we can always paint another one. It's the beauty of paint work, especially on these Jedi models, is that we have really stunning effects, but they're not exceptionally hard to paint. So now we have two very blue ships. So I'm going to leave that dark Prussian blue up there. All right. So, which way did he go, George? Hey, what's up, Felsibo? How you doing? And welcome in, everybody. Thank you so much for stopping in tonight. Tonight is going to be super, super fun. All I'm doing is applying just straight air to this model right now. It's very dark, but looking at the colors in real life and on camera, the colors are actually pretty close. We are going to be getting to this model when we finish. And I'm gonna try and do this for all of the paint-alongs that we kind of do. Some of these are just gonna be like, nope, we're just painting this and we're gonna have prize support. But others are gonna be paint-alongs, like we'll do all the Jedi like this. And so I'll have a painted, ready to go one. Apparently, for interesting story, apparently Bob Ross also did the same thing. Bob Ross's paintings were not original, made up on the spot as he was doing his show. I'm not trying to imply that I'm Bob Ross, just that I'm stealing his idea. Is that when he was doing his show, he would have one that he already had done, and he would use that as a reference as he was painting the other models, or the other painting on screen. Okay, so I'm gonna take this dark Prussian blue, okay, that we had here, and I'm going to mix it with a 50-50 with some magic blue. So this was on the highlight list. If you don't have magic blue, that's okay. You can always use a you can always add just a little bit of white instead. Blue will turn into a what's the word? Blue highlights well with white. Red will turn very, very pink if you highlight with white, but blue will kind of just move up blue's color scale a little bit. So we're gonna do a 3-stage highlight here. So the first one is we're gonna do a 50-50 magic blue and dark Prussian blue mix, and then we're going to move into and then we're gonna add a 50% mixture of white into that, and then we're going to add a 50% white mixture into that. So we're gonna have 3 sets of highlights, and we're just gonna work from the bottom here being the lightest portion, and the top here being the darkest portion. So the way that we achieve that is with the airbrush. We start by spraying underneath the ship, and we start to slowly work our way up. Once your overspray hits about 3/4 of the ship, then you've got it. And look how quick that is. Takes no time at all. Okay. And then we'll do the hyperspace ring. And the hyperspace ring here, if you didn't get a great base coat on it, like we have a little bit of splotches and stuff on the hyperspace ring, now's the time to fix that. So now you can go in and take your highlight color and just really just go over it and kind of like fix those areas. So see right here, see how we kind of have a splotch there? How we're gonna fix that is we're just gonna take the airbrush, right? And we're just gonna work. I'm not spraying directly at the ring, I'm spraying ahead of the ring. I'm letting the overspray do the highlights for me. Okay? If you really want to let your, you should let your airbrush do the work on this. But if you really want to do that, if you don't want to spray over the ship, then get right in there. Get really close and lower your air pressure. Okay. And we'll let this dry for a couple seconds. And while we let that dry, we're going to just add in some white. Don't you ruin my image of Bob Ross legend. Hi, Timotheus. How you doing? Where do you get that ring? I got this ring. I got the design from District Foundry. They were nice enough to provide Gold Squadron with the design for the ring so that we could provide it as prize support in this for the paint cast. So all of the Jedi ships that we do are going to have this ring on it. I believe that District Foundry at some point is going to sell the ring itself. But you can always get in contact with them, and I'm sure that they will if you asked very nicely, I'm sure that you could provide them with money, and they would get you the ability to get one or two of them. But they could say no. You're a pretty unlikable guy, Timotheus. I need a new compressor for my airbrush. So, all right. So real quick, let's just switch cams really quick here. I use this airbrush or this compressor. Oh, it's kind of hard to see because of my green screen. Anyway, I use this compressor. It's basically the $65 compressor that I got off of Amazon because it was nearly the cheapest one that I could find. You have to rank me number 3 in the world, Tim, and I'll give you one. That's funny. Yeah. So I mean, really, the compressor is. I mean, you shouldn't be super concerned about your compressor. If you have a good regulator and a good water trap, then all your compressor needs to do is compress up to like 20 psi. So my gloves are starting to get in the way, and they're starting to pull the paint off of here. So something that can happen. Let's get into the camera here. Okay, so something that can happen is that if you're wearing gloves, your gloves can potentially pull still kind of wet paint off of the model. This is fine because we're going to push this into black here at some point soon. So we'll be okay. But just know that if you have the opportunity, like if I was really being careful, right, I would take the peg off of this. But you know what? Let's just do that right now. So I'm going to set this down. I'm going to take the airbrush out. Gingerly set that down. We'll take the paint from there and there. So if you can, use the peg. We have pegs for a reason in X-Wing. Part of that is making this better. This is amazing. Do I do space backgrounds as well? Hi Nev Plays, how you doing? I don't do space backgrounds. This is for a miniatures game. So lucky for us, we get space backgrounds kind of done for us with the play mats. How are you, Nev Plays? Do you play X-Wing, or are you just here looking at the arts? Vav Room, I have the same one with the air tank. Do you pin things so you don't have to touch? Yeah, so like I said, you should use the peg. But yeah, you can always pin things. You know, if we wanted to, we could always take like a paper clip and pin onto this. I'm not super concerned with holding the bottom of this. I mean, like, the trick is just to be careful. If it's getting a pain, you should find an alternate. Okay, so we need to push this up. So this is the dark Prussian blue, and we're just pushing our mix, our 50-50 mix up, right? So now we added white, and I'm just getting the front edge of it, right? And this should be, like, if you're airbrushing, this shouldn't be very hard. You should be able to get it. You should be able to get this result pretty easy. The trick is going to be to make sure that you're using the right PSI on your airbrush. So start low and start working up. The right airbrush PSI is a function of distance and paint thinness. So if your paint is really thin, you don't need as much PSI to get to where you're having a good result. If your paint is too thin, then a really low PSI is just going to hook gobs of paint around. And so, like, you just have to play with it, right? And it's essentially, so just play around with it. Don't use a model that you don't care about as kind of your test model before you go into the model that you actually do care about. Okay, so last thing that we're gonna do is I'm just gonna clean out the airbrush real quick, and we're just gonna use some pure white. How does one acquire a hyperspace ring from Foundry? Well, District Foundry has an Etsy store. I am not sure that they are selling. As far as I know, the last time that I talked to District Foundry about this, he said that he was not sure that he was planning on selling this because he was thinking that it could be very, very, he would get too many orders. So, the answer is, I have no idea. I have the STL file, the 3D print file. I got a little something in my airbrush here. Sorry, pulling it out. I have the print file, and so these are actually 3D printed by myself on my super awesome resin printer. So we're gonna take this white, and we're just gonna add just some pure white, just a couple drops, because we're not gonna be using very much at all. Okay, so all we're gonna do is just let the overspray do all the work, right? Okay. Then here. So the answer is, right now, you can win them from Gold Squadron Podcast. That's the only way right now that I know that you can guarantee yourself a hyperspace ring. Okay. So we hit that with white. So now we're gonna clean out the white on our airbrush. I do have access to a resin printer. I'd happily sign an NDA. Well, so the answer is that, I mean, it's not profitable for District Foundry to you would have to talk to them. I will not, I refuse to provide the SDL to other people. This is you have to understand that, I'm promoting District Foundry. I'm trying to get, you should buy District Foundry stuff. They have an Etsy page. Go to Etsy. If you want to post your link for District Foundry, you absolutely should. Okay. So we're done with white for the moment. Now we're going to go back to dark Prussian blue, and we're going to mix that with black, and we're going to hit these back portions as a shadow. Okay, doing a really nice shade takes this long. Okay, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do this in all cases, but when you do, you get better results. So keep that in mind. That if you're working on on painting something and you want to do a really nice fade, working up to white and working down to black will give you the best looking fade that you can have. I'm still thinking about how to approach this ring. There's a lot of issues involved. Right. So, for the moment, related to this ring, the only place that you can get it is by winning one of the Gold Squadron giveaways. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm taking all the places that we accidentally broke, and I'm just kind of hitting it with the paint there. Just kind of cleaning it up. We can clean it up with a brush too, right? If you're using a regular brush, I would just suggest doing just a base coat and then maybe glazing up. We're gonna get to the brush section here in a minute when we go to the white, and everything that we talk about when we get to the white is also going to be is also going to be applicable if you were doing the blue. Okay. However, I do recommend that you do utilize the airbrush when you can, because it's too strong of a blending tool, and it's too good for X-Wing for you not to use it. Okay. So, we're done with the blue. We've gotten everything that we need to do with it is now complete. So let's take that fully off of its. Okay. I put it on a base now because we're gonna actually be painting on it here in just a second, and I kind of want the stability. I am gonna give it just a minute to dry, so we can talk about some kind of other issues as we want to. How many of these exact ships have you done before? I did one. I did one last, I don't know, last Friday, something like that. Nev plays. I did. How many X-Wing ships have I done before? I don't know, hundreds, at least hundreds. I mean, there are. I'm getting into, if we're comparing like X-Wing to like Warhammer, like I'm pushing like an Orc Horde army of X-Wing ships that I've painted. Can we see a side by side with the one you've already done? Yes, absolutely. Give me just a second. Just cleaning up the airbrush. Quick tips with the airbrush. Make sure that you're utilizing some airbrush cleaner. Right? I use this airbrush cleaner. Put it in. Make sure to use like a broken janky brush to get in there and clean out all the extra excess, and then wipe the other stuff away. Okay, so side by side with what we've already done. Let me get this Anakin off of his peg, because for whatever reason I decided that Plo Koon needed to come off his peg instead of Anakin. Okay. So, there you go. Side by side. Here, we can pull it up a little bit, and we'll up the... hold on, I'm trying to get into focus, guys. Okay. So, there we go. We got, so you can see that we got this blend down just right. We can, if we wanted to, we could take a little bit of straight magic blue, and maybe that's what we'll do. We'll push up these sides because I really like that. Just real quick, and then yeah, and then we'll start working on the stripes. Then we'll do the cockpit and the engine glow, and then we will do the droid, and we'll be done. It's again, like, it's really straightforward. We're gonna be done with this before our normal quit time. So I'm taking some magic blue, just putting that in there real quick. Do you guys like the paint counter? Are you guys? Is that something that you're finding to be that like? Because we're always all of this is kind of new tonight, so this is our first thing. Are you feeling like the? Okay. Well, we'll do the underside too, just for. No one looks at the bottom of the ship, but whatever. We'll just do it really quick. Then we gotta kind of blend in just this little section here. So I'm just pulling like a hair back on the trigger, just to get just a little bit of blue into this black, to kind of make this V kind of seem a little better. I've painted Armada. The cockpit is everything. That's right, man. It totally brings out all the character in the model. I painted Armada and Warhammer, but you haven't done X-Wing before? Well, I mean, if you play X-Wing, I strongly suggest it. It's a very rewarding experience. Unlike Warhammer, no one bothers you about your paint jobs. Every time anybody has done a paint job for X-Wing, and they bring it out to a tournament, I have never heard anybody be like, well, you could have done better on that paint job. That's really bad. Unless it was like completely joking, right? I have, however, heard that at Warhammer events, right? Where people have said, oh man, like you could have done better. Like that's not very good. And then, people get sad because, no one wants to hear that. Hubby has nearly all the models from Armada and X-Wing, and we make sure those bottoms are done. After purchase, not painting ourselves, that'd be a disaster. That's funny. Someone said that about you, Epionic? Come on, I've literally actually never heard that before. But unless someone was actually asking for critique and feedback. Okay, so now we got some hard parts to do. So we're gonna grab our little tiny detail brush. So I use a 00 Winsor Newton Series 7. And if you don't have a detailed brush, understand that brushes are not the cheapest things in the entire world. But a good brush will last you quite a long time. So I strongly always suggest investing in good brushes. So I'm going to use some light gray. Okay, this is the first of our highlight colors. If you're not using any of our highlight colors, just do a 50-50 mix of white and black, and you'll be good to go. I'm using light gray because gray covers dark colors on a model much faster than white. White, you'll have 2 coats or 3 coats or 4 coats or 5 coats. With gray, we'll have 1 coat or 2, maybe we'll have 2 coats. But with gray, we'll have like 1 or 2 coats, and then we'll immediately get to paint on white, and the white will be just glorious. So a tip, if you're painting white over a dark color, start with gray. X-Wing models are, yeah. I just purple watched it too. Oh, that's bad. Nev plays. X-Wing models are some of the most intricately beautiful things I've ever seen, other than dolls and dollhouses and miniature furniture, because you're girly AF about that. I hear ya. I'm totally in on all sorts of the stuff from miniatures. I think they're all great. I originally only got into X-Wing to have models for my office cubicle 6 years later. That's hilarious. Sent you a link to give my art some feedback if you're offline, if you have the time. Can somebody type in exclamation point Discord? Because that's really the best place that you can go find us. But yes, I'm happy to look at it. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm just going to be copying kind of off what this model is. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to paint in the lines right here. Okay. And you want to use a small brush for this because this is a small thing. Right? So we're just going to paint gray over the whole thing. We're just going to block. This is called base coating, right? And you can base coat over something that you've already base coated, right? So now we're blocking in the white. So just block it in right here. Boom. Okay, we'll take the second one. But yeah, I'm happy to look over whatever. And if for those of you that have already been in the channel, if you're enjoying us, then you know, why not give us a follow? You know, hit that little follow button up there. It's easy. Well, I mean, so Nev said using grays to cover a darker color and then using white. That's the same technique for an eyeshadow blend. Well, that's because, I mean, it makes sense, right? White doesn't cover very well over black. So you use a gray because gray covers really well over black. Okay, so the hardest part here. We're getting into the hardest part here, so we're going to focus in. What we want to do is we want to make these really, really nice. We really want to make these nice lines and make them even. There are a couple ways that we can achieve this. The first way is you could go the really, really long route and like geometrically plan out where all of this stuff is, right? You can like say, oh, okay, it's, you know, we got this angle here, and you can angle it all out, and then you can cut up tape, and you can put tape here, and then you can paint it, right? We're not going to do that because that's really, really, really overkill, okay? All that I want, if you're painting this, all that you really need to do is figure out where the paint starts. So we know that the top portion of this, I'm going to set this down for a second. We know that the top portion of this paints, we have a little bit of a thing right at the top of the cockpit, right? And a little bit of the thing at the top of the cockpit, okay? Because these are symmetrical. And the most important part of all of this is not to be perfect, it's to try and be symmetrical, okay? Luckily, this ship is very symmetrical. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make a mark where the bottom, so we made a mark where the top of it is. Now we're going to make a mark where the bottom of it is. And so I'm taking this line right here, and I'm just marking right up at the top of this line. And that's where the first part is going to be. And then we're going to take that same line and we're going to mark at the top of that line. So now we have 2 marks on our ship, and now we're gonna do our best to paint a straight line. So painting a straight line all it does is require you to have 2 hands on the table. One hand your brush hand touching the model that you're holding, and all you're gonna do is make one straight stroke, just with your fingers. Okay. This is something that as a painter you'll get better at, but it is something that you need to practice. So you're not going to get it right the first time. And so it's just good. And see how slow I'm going? Okay. I'm just letting a little bit of paint get on there. And then boom, you got a straight line. If at this point you have your start mark and your end mark, and you want to put a little piece of painter's tape down to make sure that you're getting a straight line, go for it. Use the tools that are going to best work for you. I do, however, know that it does get faster if you learn to You get your freehand gets faster. Everything gets faster if you learn to do straight lines. Okay, so now we have a really nice straight V. Yeah, so post in the Discord. Post if you're not doing X-wing miniatures, then there inside the Discord there is a other creative things section. So definitely post in that, and yeah, we give feedback even on stream. So it looks like the next line happens just underneath this little section right here. Do I need to, maybe I need to zoom in a little bit for this. Okay. Thanks. If you don't have steady hands at all, what else can you use to make straight lines? I heard tape, I think, but wouldn't that ruin the ship? So, good painter's tape will not ruin the ship. So, yellow painter's tape right here. So you can take some yellow painter's tape. Take this straight edge, take just like a little piece of it, and once you have your top and your bottom lines, just stick that on there and then draw your line. Okay? And then the painter's tape, as long as you apply it gingerly, so we'll apply it really quick. Okay, so it's stuck on there. We paint the line, and as long as and then just kind of just really carefully take it off, and it'll be fine. Okay, you don't want to use Scotch tape. You don't want to use like masking tape. You want to use painter's tape. Blue painter's tape works, but I find that I enjoy the yellow painter's tape just a little more. Because I think it's fancy. Okay, so the next line is gonna start right at this little section right here. Okay, right at this little line, we're just gonna make just a little mark. Okay, and then we're gonna go down to right past where the symbol is, and we're gonna get like almost to like a third of the way down on this section here. Okay, so just kind of eyeball, kind of like figure out a good like place where you're like, okay, yeah, this is the same. So we're about a third of the way down right there. Okay, and we're about a third of the way down right there. Okay, so now if you have these lines, once you get the first line in, that's the hardest part. Okay, because now if you wanted to, if you're like, man, I don't make straight lines at all, this would be impossible, right? Take that straight line that you had and slowly start filling it down. Okay, so say, okay, so now this is a little thicker. Okay. My phone just like decided to explode for a second. Apologize. So just slowly start filling this in. Maybe I should get on a little more centered on the camera. Okay. And you can just slowly work its way out. And if you're like, man, that's not quite straight, and just put a little paint just to the left of where you just painted. And that will fill out your line. Alternatively, if you want some practice, which I recommend, I think you should use every single opportunity to paint as practice. You can paint in your line using the top of the brush, making a nice smooth stroke. and then you can paint it in. Make sure you're using thin paints too. You know, your paint should be just about milk consistency. And for those of you that are kind of new tonight, welcome in, welcome in. I hope you're having an excellent evening. We're painting up this Plo Koon right now, this Jedi starfighter from the X-Wing Miniatures game. Center my cam. Sorry. I zoomed in because the models are small. Dark Prussian blue and magic blue. So our blue progression looks like this. So we have dark Prussian blue as the dark one, magic blue as the mid, and then we slowly added white to that mixture until we got what we needed to get. Is there a schedule when we stream? Gold Squadron podcast does a lot of different things. The Paintcast streams on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern time until, I don't know, just about 9:30ish Eastern time. And then on Thursdays, we do the same thing, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. You are welcome to go on to Facebook and join our Facebook group, the Gold Squadron podcast. There you will learn a ton about all sorts of X-Wing and other things that are going on. Yeah, I know. I need to talk with. So I'm just a staff member on this channel. I just do the painting. We also host major. We also do streaming for major tournaments. I'm taking off my glove. There's too much blue paint. I just got some on my jeans. We do major tournaments and stuff like that. So the main guy for the channel, he's the one who kind of runs the show, Dion Morales. Everybody loves Dion. He's awesome. And he does a podcast on Monday night or on Tuesday nights. And then sometimes on Saturdays, there will be large tournaments that we stream from. Okay, so the next one is, let me make sure I'm centered in the cam. Okay. So the next one looks like it's just before this little guy. So we're just gonna make a little notch right there, and then this is right next to the R2 unit. I remember that being a little annoying. And then we go down all the way to where this corner goes, and we just lift up from the corner. So we go right here. And these Jedi starfighters are exactly symmetrical. So once you find the right spot on one side, doing it on the other side is in the exact same place, only mirrored, obviously. So we'll do a nice little line here. Okay. And all we're doing is the same techniques, guys. We're just rinsing and repeating at this point. This is pretty easy. So then we go down right underneath where the corner is. So we say, okay, that's where the corner is. So now this one is under the corner. This one is under the corner. And we put the mark right in the center of this little line. So right centered in this little section. And these are just how I did these lines. If you find that you have a much better way in your head that you can do them, and you feel more confident doing it that way, then do it that way. Because there is no reason why, because painting is all about confidence. If you think that you can do it, I promise that you can. So I know that the method that I'm doing works. That's why I'm showing it to you. And I think that is personally the easiest way to go about doing doing this, right? And then we have the last one, which starts here, ends here, and I'm sorry I'm not keeping up with chat right now. Well, we'll make it start a little lower. We'll make this one start a little lower. I'm kind of like going. I'm trying to make this a little more symmetrical, so I'm just breaking the. So this 1, 2. So we'll make this go right here. We'll make this go right here. And then we'll make this go right here. And this go right here. Apologize for not talking. I'm just trying to mark out these lines. Right, you're gonna have to eyeball it yourself, and while you're doing this, you're gonna definitely want to eyeball it yourself. If you get too much paint on your paintbrush, you don't want it pooling at this stage, so just turn it. Oh, have I been painting on the camera, man? Hey, Rooster, how you doing? I'm trying to learn as fast as I can. Yeah, it's all. There's lots of good resources for the X-Wing community. I think by far, some people would argue with me, but I still think by far the best resources are probably found on Facebook. Is like where a lot of the community tends to hang its hat. The Reddit community is fine. This is not an opinion of the Gold Squadron podcast, but of me. I find Reddit to be mean, so I don't like to hang out there. And then there's the Fantasy Flight Games forums, which are adequate. You get some, it's hit or miss. You get some good information, and then you get a whole bunch of you have to very much spend some time really working through that. Again, my personal experience, not the opinions of Gold Squadron podcast. Okay. Boom. We got our lines. Hi, from the PS4 Twitch, revolutionary. Huzzah. Okay. So, we have the lines that we're going to use for that. They're all blocked in. So, we're going to move away from Plo Koon there, and now we're going to figure out what we want to do with this hyperspace ring. And honestly, I have zero idea. I think we're going to keep this as simple as possible. Okay? I don't think we're going to do anything crazy. I think we're going to leave. I think what we're going to do is going to leave the hyperspace ring to really inform on the model itself. So I'm going to take these places where the ring is kind of inset a little bit. We're just going to make lines here. I assume that someone could find the show notes and find the exactly what Plo Koon's for the Clone Wars and find exact. Man, I have to paint not where I feel I need to paint in order to not be on in order to be on camera over here. Okay. Okay. In the right spot now. Sorry, I keep doing this. I need a alarm that yells at me whenever I'm painting in the chat box. Maybe I should just turn off the chat box. Obviously, I can still read your chats. I'm just okay. So we just kind of marked that out, and then we'll do the engines definitely a different color. We'll definitely do big engine somewhere. And then anything that we want to do on the bottom of the ring. Maybe we'll do... We'll take this mark here. And sorry, I'm trying to think about how to make this symmetrical. And this mark here, and then we'll take a center mark, and then we'll make a triangle here to kind of starburst this out just a tad. And then we'll just go a little bit north here and a little bit north here. Boom. Okay. Okay, so I had a ton of X-Wing 1.0. I wish there was a Gold Squadron video about flying. Oh my gosh, there are so many. Oh, okay. So go on to the new plays. Go onto the Gold Squadron Discord, and we'll send you, and someone can post or someone can post a link to the Gold Squadron YouTube, because there are tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of resources about how to become better at this game. Like if that's your goal, then like that's a solvable one. There are so many resources and articles and everything that we can give you. Okay. Recently moved. All right, Nev. So be advised, this is a PG channel. So kind of at least keep in mind that we would rather you be clean than not, if possible. I'm not gonna really worry about it, but we'll get there. Okay, so now I'm taking the gray, and now that we have everything kind of blocked in, I'm just kind of giving it a nice clean second coat. And we're gonna really get this ready to go. We're gonna be moving really fast. Things are gonna change really quick here. And if you're using gray for this, which you should be, this is a very good time to this is a very good time to get a really nice strong base coat on here. So make sure you can't see through the model at all. Okay, need to be like not right there. I need to be like right where that is. Okay. I'm actually gonna take a second. Okay. That's not for you guys, that's just for me to remind me where center is, so that I can stay centered on the thing. I posted some of my examples of art on the Discord. I think I put it in work in progress, WIP pics. That's fine. Yeah. We'll move it to we'll get it moved to the right place if it's not in the right place. Okay, I'm just kind of getting the sides really quick. I'm not super concerned about it, but okay. So now we're gonna move on to glaze medium. Okay, glaze medium is probably one of my favorite things to utilize. What glaze medium does is it I would love to show you like how offset my stuff is from this camera right now. What glaze medium does is glaze medium makes paint thinner, right? It doesn't make paint thin like a wash. What it does is it spreads out the paint and it makes paint a tint. So what we're going to do is we're going to use glaze medium on both white to tint up the white over here so that we get a nice fade like this. And then we're also going to do the same thing to black to fade it down to give a nice fade. If you don't have an airbrush, this is the best way to make a fade. Okay? So we're going to do white first. So you want to do at least a 50-50 transition between glaze medium and white. So take your glaze medium in your wet palette. Take your white. Okay, mix them together. It should be like real thin, like when you paint over it on your thing. Like it should be like, you shouldn't feel like you're painting white paint. You should feel like you're painting like a really thin white paint. I don't know how else to describe it. Glaze mediums are kind of unique. Okay. And if you look, what you'll see is that it's not going into the crevices. It's just sitting on top, right? And what it's doing is we're getting a little tint. Okay. The more paint that you put there, the more paint that the whiter that it'll get. So what we want to do is we want to think about this like stained glass. Okay. So if you have one panel of stained glass, that stained glass is going to be, you're going to be able to see a tint right through it. But if you have two panels of stained glass, then the world's going to get a little more opaque, right? You're going to see less of the world and more of that color. 3 panels, same thing. So think about all of this as stained glass. I'm going to move that hyperspace ring because it is super in the way. So we're going to be doing multiple coats of this white until we get the right coverage. And I'm not super worried that it kind of moved up, that it got a little thin enough to get up into the crevices there. That's just because the paint's real thin, not because the glaze is bad. And because I maybe had a little too much on my brush. So all we do then is we just let that sit and let that dry really quick. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our hyperspace ring. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to take that glaze medium. Just going to take it like this. If you're painting really intricate things and you want a airbrush-like blend, but you don't have the, but it's too small to really get the airbrush in there, this is a very good way to do it. It's not the only way, but it is a very straightforward way to do this. And yes, it can be time consuming, right? I'm sure some of you are thinking, man, like, what happens if you thin it out a bunch and you can do a ton of coats? Yep, you can do a ton of coats with glazing to get the exact right blend all the way up. Because if everything goes perfect, right, you won't see that transition, because when it dries, it'll dry a little thinner. And so this can be slightly time consuming. We're going to try not to make it that time consuming. But if you wanted to, you could do this on the blue, starting from the blue. Gosh, off my mark. Okay. Okay. Is that the glossy effect or the metallic effect or both? No. This is not this glaze medium is not a glossy or metallic effect. But there are mediums that do that. Translucent mediums make it metallic-y. Gloss mediums will make it glossy. Steelwater, where did that ring come from? District Foundry provided Gold Squadron the STL files, and we printed up the resin. Or we printed it up from in my resin printer just to do it. I'm pretty happy with it at the moment. Ha, didn't mess it up. Okay. So let's do, so we could take, if this winds up still being, it looks like things are starting to dry a little bit, so we'll, okay. But you also don't have to have a blend here, right? So remember that I'm teaching to everybody, right? I'm teaching to people who are intermediate beginning painters, intermediate painters, and I mean, advanced painters already know everything that I'm talking about, and they don't need me for anything. They got it. So. And I know that we're getting these lines are slowly filling up, but we're gonna fix that here at some point as we move forward. So don't worry. Oh man, now I'm over the thing. Oh man, jeez, I'm just like a hot mess. I got too many things on the screen. Okay. Mediums are a normal way to thin the pigment. Thin the pigment without thinning the paint. Right. Yep. Cool. Yeah. So okay. So we got this. We're gonna keep working on this, and then I'm also gonna build up the black. And then I will show you a cool trick to help bring everything together right at the end. Remember though, good painting comes with patience, right? Good painting and patience go together. There isn't, as you get better, you will get faster. So just as you get more experienced, right, you'll get faster too. So when you're learning to paint and you're learning to figure out everything, just take your time. It's okay. You are not in a race. Unless you're in a race, and then do your best. But typically, you're not in a race. So let's let that dry for a second. And now I'm going to do the same thing with black. All right, so let's take this over here. I'm going to put in a drop of black, because black is a very overwhelming color. And I'm going to put in at least 2 full drops. Let's do 3. 3 drops of that black. just take my paintbrush and mix it up. Boom. And I hope you guys are getting some painting done while we're working tonight. So take the black and just do the take the black. If you guys are Game of Thrones fans, I hope you at least chuckled at that funny joke. Okay, so I'm just running down the side, everything close to the center of the hull. I'm making dark. Okay. Remember, we're looking for tints. We're not looking for opacity, so it's okay. It's a good thing that this is just shading, right? This isn't like covering this in any sort of real way. As this dries more, as we go back to it, we'll add more and more color to it. Right? Do the same thing back here. So we'll move this out of the way. Paint on my brush, so so if you have too much paint on your brush, you can always just take this and just wipe some off on your fingernail. Just spin your brush on it, and then that will take a bunch off. Hey, Favoom gifted a tier 1 sub to Nev Plays. Thanks Favoom, you're awesome. I appreciate you. Very nice of you. Nev Plays, enjoy the emotes and enjoy being part of the Gold Squadron community for a month. Thanks for hanging out. Any of you that have, any of you that are really enjoying the content and want to see more of it, obviously we have a YouTube where we have all of our past broadcasts on there, and if you want to see some excellent X-Wing play, we have all of our previous tournament matches up there, and if you enjoy us on Twitch, maybe you should consider subscribing. It's $5 a month. I promise that regardless of whether or not you are intending to subscribe or continue subscribing, I'll still be here. I'll still be providing you with the best content that I can, trying to make things better. Even though sometimes I make things a little worse. I get a new camera and my computer can't handle the camera, so. Hey, Felsibo with the 100 bits. Thanks for the 100 bits. Appreciate it. Okay, so I'm taking just straight white, and I'm slowly making a less powerful glaze, right? So all I'm doing is I'm taking our white glaze that we had. Let's flip this around. There we go. So this is new white. This is just white paint. This is the glaze that we had, right? So I'm taking some of the glaze, I'm sticking it in a center portion. I'm taking some of the white, I'm sticking it in the center portion. Just kind of mixing it up, right? I'm trying now to dilute the glaze just a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this diluted glaze to slowly start, or to speed up the working process of this ship, right? because we can be here for a couple days doing, like, we can be here for a while doing just glazes. Glazes are excellent if you want to do things perfectly. We don't need perfection here right now. All we want is a nice blend, a nice brush blend. And so a really quick way to do a brush blend is to start with a glaze, go to the paint, and then do a half, right? On here, we're going to do the same thing. Notice that I'm making nice little strokes down, right? I'm not making like big sweeping side to side strokes, right? I want that control. I want to be able to control where exactly my brush is going. So I always, if I need control, I always make an up and down stroking motion, right? I don't bother with trying anything else other than, okay, just this is where I know that the brush can hit, because I practice that a lot. I've spent a lot of time just on a piece of paper. Okay? And this is a good practice technique for you guys. If you really want to work on upping your brush control a little bit, okay? This is the flying around rocks, right, way that you can up your brush control. Okay, people, we were talking about, you can practice X-Wing just on your kitchen table by just setting some rocks down and flying around them, right? Well, if you want to get better at your brush control, a good technique to do, we'll just take this. So I have this this card case right here. A good thing to do, you can take a piece of paper, like a cheap piece of notebook paper or whatever. I'm gonna need to do some black anyway. So all you have to do is just make straight lines. Start small and make them even, okay? This is glossy, so it's not so we're gonna be able to wipe it off, but yeah, start making small lines. Once you can do small lines, then you can do bigger lines, and then you'll realize that really long lines are just a subset of really short lines. So just practice, right? That's a cheap way that you can practice without breaking it, without destroying any models, without wasting a whole bunch of paint, right? You can do that without almost any work. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take the black and do the same exact thing. We're going to take the black, mix it with our black, black glaze that we had, so that we have a little bit of a thicker. Hey Marcel, how you doing? Marcel Manzano, one of the co-hosts of the Gold Squadron podcast. Tournament player extraordinaire, except when he gets killed by a flat tire. Marcel was trying to come down to the Indy Regional last weekend, in which I went 4-2. Okay, guys, I know for those of you that know how bad I am at X-Wing, 4-2 is pretty darn good for me. I'm pretty hyped. So this is pretty black. So I'm gonna go back to our glaze and kind of fill in. So if it's too black, then just take your glaze and kind of whoop, push that up. Okay. Last step. If you have the gray that you still made from the white and black, use that. If you're using a gray like this light gray that we made our base coat with, use that. So now that we have 2 glazes done, we're gonna make a 3rd glaze out of the gray, and we're gonna go between where the light and the black are. So do you see what I'm doing? So now that I blended the white into the gray and the gray into the black, I'm gonna blend the gray back into those 2 colors to make a nice transition, right? We want it really like using the base tone glaze. We can make a nice transition between the 2. Okay, and you obviously just want to be right in the center portions of it. Okay. So now let's finish up the hyperspace ring. Let's get this. Let's get the black on there. The really dark black. So we're just pushing this black into those far recesses, and then we're taking the black all the way down here in this, on the bottom here. Okay. Are the ships are there ships painted that have damage on them? It would be amazing but hard work to paint ships in different stages of damage. Ships, holes, whatever. It's actually not too. It's less hard than you think. We might be able to do a little bit of. We might do a little bit of damage on this hyperspace ring. I don't really want to do it on Plo because I feel like the Jedi wouldn't necessarily like want damage on their ships. I know that the Rebel Arc 170, that ship has some damage on it. So I'm just taking this gray in there and just kind of blending everything together. Wet blending. If you're really into wet blending is an option here, but I find that glazing just is a much faster, superior technique. But if you're good at wet blending, then it might be faster just to wet blend it. So there's all sorts of different options here. We have so much range when it comes to painting. There's so many different techniques. People have been painting for hundreds and thousands of years. So, and we have all of those techniques at our disposal. It's just a matter of knowing which technique is the best technique to use at the right time. And by doing that glaze, boom, we get pretty nice blends. Okay, and so if you're ever wondering how to do that with a brush, right? That's how you do it. Okay, so now I'm gonna take actually let's just take the black. Let's finish this up. All right, I'm gonna take the straight black that we had, and I'm once again gonna paint some straight lines, and I'm just gonna paint right on the outside of where our ship lines are. Okay, this is a great way to hide if you weren't perfect on your man, this black is just way thin. I need a thicker black. Okay. If your line wasn't perfectly straight, this is the time that you can fix it. If you have a micron pen and you don't have steady hands, right? You can paint almost straight lines on the white and gray, and then use like a Sigma Micron archival ink pen. If someone's really interested, I can go grab mine. But you can just go grab it. You can just use that, and then you can use a pen to do it. And a pen, man, that can make things pretty easy. But I strongly recommend blacklining elements. I think blacklining elements gives it more of a it does give it a little bit more of like a comic book style, but I think the comic book style really works on most ships in X-Wing. There. Hey, hey, see ya, new plays. Just downloaded the program Fly Casual. Heard about it last night. Cool. Thanks, Nev Plays. Appreciate it. See ya. Have a good night. Hey, Crazy Vulcan. Have a good night. Okay. So we're going to do the same thing with this. We're just going to take this, and we're just going to get the... Hopefully all y'all are enjoying everything that's going on tonight. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I know that you don't have to. I know that there are much more interesting things to do than on a Thursday night than sit and watch people paint. So I appreciate the support. I hope you guys are painting too. Or I hope that you're picking something up, right, from this. And I hope you're picking something up from this, because it is, because I love getting on here and showing people how to do stuff and showing people how to paint a little better. So it is probably actually more fun Twitch streaming with you guys and hanging out than it is actually doing commissions for people. Because commissions are fine, but they're not as interesting as having someone actually do the commission themselves, right? And so I love looking in the gallery and seeing everybody's how everybody's been doing and painting all their stuff. It's so cool. Like, you guys are awesome. We have such an awesome community in X-Wing. Okay. So now we need to make a decision about this hyperspace ring here. I want to paint the engines, but I'm not sure how I want to paint the engines. I think I didn't put this on the list, but I think I might dig out a silver really quick, and we might do silver on the engines. I guess the silver is not technically part of Plo Koon, right? Because for now, you guys can't actually get a hold of a hyperspace ring, so I have my big box of paints. Alright, let's try this. Let's try these two. Brandon, Blaine, and myself are shipping and watching. Hey, Brandon, Blaine, you guys are scholars and really, really nice people for helping Dion pack and ship things, because he really likes to complain about all the stuff that he has to do. And so thank you so much for helping him. I don't understand why you're spending so much time on this Jedi when the buzz droids just blow him up. Well, you know, we gotta start somewhere. Someday we'll get a Jedi that doesn't just blow up the buzz droids. So I'm just taking some dark metal, Model Air metallic black, and we're just base coating this ring right here. I'm not really sure where I'm going with it. It might look dumb, but we'll keep working at it till it doesn't look dumb. So metallic paints. When you paint metallic paints, you want to make sure that you thin them, but you don't thin them too much. In metallic paints, they utilize mica, and mica is a rock, right? That that is shiny, right? And that shininess, that reflectiveness, that crushed mica is what actually is the agent that makes metallics metallic, right? It's not, they don't actually have metal in metallics, it's just mica rock, right? Because mica is way cheaper than metal. So when you thin out a metallic paint, you're also spreading out where that mica is. That mica is now spread out over a whole much larger area. So you want to make sure that when you're using metallic paints that you thin them out just a tad, or just a tad, but not enough, not like you would a regular paint. Because you want you want it to be metallic all the way through. And that's why mixing metallics with acrylics doesn't work all that well. So I think I see how this is going to come together. I think I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel here. Basically I'm freehanding this section. I didn't have anything planned for this hyperspace ring. I have no idea like where we're going to. Unlike the Plo Koon, right? I didn't do a test Plo Koon hyperspace ring, although maybe I should have. So I'm just taking this dark metal as a base coat. And what I want to do, I think, is go back to our gray. Our light gray that we had. And I think I want to make this front section white. Also, for those of you that are wondering if you're using the airbrush, can you glaze with the airbrush? The answer is yes. So if you can actually put glaze medium into an airbrush and really have like a very fine control on how much tint you're giving something. Instead of it being a blend from top to bottom, we can actually tint this with a different color to kind of like work everything back together. If that was our goal. Tonight it's not. And I think we want to do this in white as well. So I'm using the large brush right now. So do you guys like the changes to the screen other than me not knowing where to put myself right now? Like, are you guys generally happy with it? What do you think? Are these changes that you are appreciative of, or that you don't care, or that okay. If your droids think that they can easily blow up this Jedi, then yes, they're buzzed. That's funny. Okay. So we're kind of getting something going on with this. I'm not 100% sold, but I'm also not disappointed either. I think we're coming along. Okay. So with that in mind, that's all right. Right. Okay. So now I'm gonna take some chrome or silver, and kind of mix it in with the black metallic and start highlighting it up a little bit. Came back just in time to see a super dope paint scheme. Yeah, well, we're not done yet. We're still working on stuff. Oh, it's 8:54, man. We're a little behind, but that's okay. We're gonna keep at it. I think we have enough to finish tonight for sure. I think we're far enough along that we can definitely finish. Okay. And then we're gonna add just a little more silver. Right? Everything is just a process of blending up. Right? It's the only way that you can create contrast and get something to look really interesting. You can have things that look interesting without creating, going through a whole bunch of levels of contrast, but if you do the work, you'll be rewarded for it with really cool looking schemes. Okay. And now we'll take white and we'll do the same thing. Shiny Trade Federation boy, greater than one measly Jedi. Oh, you guys are awesome. But what about those gunboats? How does a Jedi do against those gunboats? Yeah, I do. You're right. I mean, so the issue is that we're like super zoomed in right now because Jedis are the smalls. And so we need to have the small camera in here, right? Because if we were working on something big, we're not really doing a whole lot of blending on this. This is just kind of like a white ring, right? The one white ring to rule them all or something. I don't know. But yes, you're right. I do need to paint to figure out where exactly I'm supposed to be. And I think to just the left edge of this paint strip is a good spot for me right now. And then I have to, as I'm painting, I have to remember that that's my spot, right? So I get so excited because I'm literally using like you have to remember that these Jedi are 4 centimeters long, okay? And so I have like I understand that it's not necessarily an excuse, but I have like less than 5 centimeters of play. I understand. I have less than like 5 centimeters of play to actually like. This is how zoomed in we're in. Is that like 4 centimeters, 4 centimeters. So literally me moving this at all is getting in there. And so, but yeah, but I'm not sure how we can see it better with it being less zoomed in. So it's just a trade-off, and we're figuring it out. I appreciate your guys' patience. Thank you for being patient with kind of the new stream setup. So we're doing some dark Prussian blue now. So what I'm doing is I'm thinning out a little bit of dark Prussian blue. This is the one that we started with. And now all I'm going to do is take the dark Prussian blue, and I'm just going to run it through the recesses just really quick. Okay. If you have a dark blue wash, this would work just as well. Otherwise, practice that control. The nice thing about dark Prussian blue is that when it's thinned down with water, it becomes fairly transparent. So it's pretty easy to match the color underneath. Okay, boom, got that done. All sorted. One thing I forgot to do was there's a little gray spot on Plo Koon's thing right here. I think that's a color choice that they use to break up how dark it is in the center, or at least that's how we're going to utilize it as a device to block up all the stuff in the center. And we're just going to glaze up to white here. I guess since this paint is wet, it's technically a mixture of glazing and wet blending. But we don't have to go too crazy with that. Okay, so now we have a pretty nice looking Plo Koon ship. The hard part's done, guys. now we're going to take some red gore. Okay, this is our dark red base coat that we started with. Or gory red, right? Boop. Okay, boom. Maybe if I move this over just a little bit, that'll give me a little more room. I know. No. You're right. I want your guys' feedback. DJ Sathan. I want your guys' feedback in order to, because that's the only way that we're gonna make this stream the best that it can be. And so we just made some changes, but I am explaining to you that even though that I understand that I'm going off camera, not to where I need not be, but at the same time it is challenging. So we're taking this red gore and we're just being careful. And we're just going over the cockpit. Okay. Why is a good question. Of why are we going over the cockpit with this red compared to something else? So let's take a look at the color wheel and figure that out. So we are utilizing blue, right? But we're utilizing a very lighter shade of blue. So our contrasting color, if you go directly across the color wheel, so just go right across, you're gonna see that we're in like a reddish orange territory. The complementary color to blue is orange, or the contrasting color to blue is orange. Sorry, complementary would be purple or green. So we're starting with red, and then we're gonna blend up to red so that we have a really nice contrast. Okay, you make sure that you're consulting your color wheel when you're designing your own schemes and you're thinking about stuff. Think about, okay, if I'm gonna use two colors, right? Because white doesn't count as a color. White and black are monochrome; they don't count as colors. If I'm using two colors, what color should I use? Go contrasting, right? So go right across the color wheel. If you say I'm using three colors, make a triangle, right? Start with your main color and then make a triangle to go to your other two colors. If you say I'm gonna use four colors, make a square, right? 5 colors, make a pentagon, right? And that's gonna give you a really nice color scheme that's really gonna work well. That you're not gonna be shaking your head and going, those colors just didn't work very well. Hey, Epionic. You're back. Are you still... in all seriousness, I have 2 Delta 7s, and I'm not sure if I love this paint job or Mace Windu's more. Would love a third one once I decide the paint job that I want. There you go. Well, we're going to be doing Maces probably in a few weeks. Well, maybe next week. I don't know. Okay. So now that we have a second coat on that red going, on that gory red, we're gonna move to just regular red. Raw. Okay. And so if we wanted to, we could do the exact same thing that we did before. We can let this dry really quick, and then we could use some glaze to glaze everything up. And I think that's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna move to the airbrush, and we're gonna start working in all of our engine glow. Okay, and because we have 2 paints, we have not a small amount of engine glow to work through. So we're gonna use this gory red for our engine while we let the cockpit dry on Plo. Okay. So with, I'm going to move that out of the way. Your airbrush is going to spray paint everywhere that its nozzle is pointing. So just make sure that you don't have anything underneath the nozzle where it's going to point. Okay? And I'm just note how close I'm getting in and how little I'm pulling back on the trigger. Okay? Good airbrush technique is get in close when you're working on details. And you just pull back on the trigger just real lightly. Right? If you're pulling back all the way on your trigger, you're probably doing something wrong. You probably have a clog, you probably have something that you need to look at your airbrush with. Okay, so we got that glow set in there. And now we're going to do the same thing back here. Only we can be a lot crazier with this glow because, I mean, it's coming out of hyperspace, man. And Plo Koon, you know, he's not a Sith, but he has red engine glow because he is blue. And personally, I'm a fan of exceptionally large overglow. So we're going to do it on the hyperspace ring, but we're going to try and keep things pretty straight on the on Plo Koon ship. Okay, next I'm going to swap to red, and we're just going to add that in there, and we're going to start to work our colors up. Where did I get the hyperdrive? Hey, Suka13, where did I get the hyperdrive from the ship? District Foundry, who is down at the bottom right there. They decided that they were going to be nice enough, because they're one of our partners, to donate the file to us. And so they donated the file to Gold Squadron. So for Gold Squadron paints, that we do with the Jedi, we can. I printed out the thing on my resin printer, and they turned out just excellent. So, District Foundry created them, but currently they are not in production. I think they probably could be in production. Maybe they'll be in production for a limited run. Who knows? I don't know. Are we going to paint up all the Jedi Delta 7 paint jobs? Yes. We're going to do every single Jedi, and then we're going to do one of all the other ships. So I'm adding... Okay, so red. When you're highlighting up red can either be yellow, or red can either highlight it up to orange or can highlight up to pink. We want to go to white, so we're gonna have a little bit of pink in our thing. But if you add just a little bit of yellow, it's gonna really darken what that pink looks like. So I would recommend in that red adding just a little bit of yellow to make it just like the slightest bit of orange, and then adding white to make it go pink. Right? It's going to give you like a much, you'll see here in just a second, but it's going to give you a much like cleaner red or cleaner pink. See? Much better pink. Okay, and then you just want to be like real careful on your engines, because you don't want to mess up the glow that you already had, right? But you want to get the glow on the engines here. So as you're working on your airbrush, remember, like, just be careful with that, because you can easily get yourself into a little bit of trouble. We're going to add just a little bit. I'm going to clean out a lot of the airbrush so I don't have to add more paint to get this more white. Okay. And then we'll add just some white. And we will be, and we're getting super close to done here. This is feeling pretty good. Feeling pretty good about this. Okay. Okay. So we're good. Okay. So you can see that I'm making a smaller and smaller and smaller circle on how much I'm painting. So as you get closer, you need less and less and less and less and less paint. Okay. And so I'm going to clean out the airbrush because we're finished with that. Then we're going to just go directly into white to finish off the engine glow. And then that red should be dry enough now that we can paint up the next stage on the highlights on the cockpit. What resin printer do I use? I have the Anycubic Photon. So I had to wash my kids. Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, so Epionic was gone. Now he's back. Good. Okay, so I'm gonna switch the detail brush. We're just gonna go with just a little bit of white. And we're gonna put some white directly into the center. Tasteful, nice. And then here, we're gonna put some white into the cross here. It takes. Still a little wet. Still a little wet, but it'll be fine. You can be on big stuff like this, on like glow and stuff. You can be a little bit more messy with your how you're placing your colors. You don't have to be like we were up here. You don't have to be perfect. Okay, so let's get back to this. So a good thing to remember is to use your time wisely while you're painting. So while you're letting something dry, if you're still in the painting mode, go on to the next thing. So we're now back to just this red. And I'm just getting the lower half of this cockpit complete with this red. Okay. Red is naturally very transparent. So what that means is that you don't necessarily need to do a whole lot of work to get your red to blend in. The issue with that is that if you want something to be really, really red, you either have to put it on fairly thick or you have to put on a whole bunch of coats. So we're going to let that coat dry. And while we're letting that coat dry, now we're going to move on to the astromech. So the way that I did this Plo's astromech is I just painted it white, and then I did the red trim on top of it. So we're going to do the same thing. Because this ship, you could paint it whatever you wanted. If you wanted to put R2-D2 on this ship, you could. But I don't think Plo Koon necessarily has any sort of like unique astromechs that he had, or at least I can't think of any. And while there are a lot more Star Wars nerds than me out there, I'm gonna make the assumption that if I didn't put Plo Koon's astromech on there, that no one's gonna be very offended by that. Okay, on this red for the cockpit, I'm gonna add a little bit of yellow to make an orange. If you have an orange that you want to use, go for it. This is all I'm doing is literally mixing an orange. So, nothing fancy. Okay. The Jedi cockpits are small, so you don't necessarily have to like be really concerned about making things having really nice blends. The smaller something is, the less you need to blend something together. When you're doing these long runs right here, having nice blends really helps. When you're doing shorter blends, when you're doing shorter areas, you don't need to blend as much. Oh. So I'm going to knock this down in color a little bit. So all I'm doing is bringing back in some gory red. And we're just knocking down this color to kind of help the transition a little bit. Then we'll take some actual yellow, some just pure medium yellow. We're just going to stick that right there. Wipe off the excess after you get this little bit in there, and then just start working it in. You don't want a ton of yellow in this cockpit. You want mostly reddish and reddish orange. So you don't want that yellow to overwhelm all the work that you just did. So as you once you get to a place where you're pretty happy, you gotta remember to learn how to stop. Because you could fiddle with this for hours until you're like, yep, okay, that's either perfect or I'm never gonna get better than that. So and then if we wanted to, we could take a little bit of yellow, because yellow is pretty transparent, and we could just maybe hit the outsides of the glow just a tad. And then I see a little spot that we kind of missed. That kind of lost its paint. Okay. Last step. Well, second to last step. We're going to take some magic blue. We're going to put that on our palette. And we are going to edge highlight the entire Jedi Starfighter. So remember, edge highlighting, get some paint on your brush, okay, and then take the edge of your brush and just kind of run it along the edges of the ship. And as we get further forward, there's less of a need, but also you want to make sure that you're you could potentially lighten up the magic blue to get an actual better highlight. Maybe we'll think about that. Yeah, we can do that really quick. a little too bright. There you go. And so we just edge highlight everything up. Oh, we didn't finish the astromech yet. Okay, we got to finish the astromech too. And then you just take your brush and you just go and you hit all of the panels. We also, guys, because I am because I'm a person and I care about you guys, I was able to acquire a Star Wars Celebration Vader that we can paint up on stream, and then we'll give that away, so that'll be cool. Hopefully you guys are pretty interested in it. Hopefully, I know that some of you play Legion, but everybody likes to paint, and that model is amazing. So we'll paint that up and get that going. Okay, so once you have your edge highlighting done, you can always go back if you made a couple mistakes, and we were pretty fast with that, so we definitely didn't get that perfect. Always go back if you're like going super fast with a color, and just kind of clean up those edge highlights. The thinner that you make the edge highlights, the more that people are impressed with how good your edge highlighting is. So, but you don't want it so thin that it's not noticeable, right? So there's like a nice little balance there. So I'm just taking this dark Prussian blue that's thinned out just a little bit, and I'm just kind of running it over. Right, and that's really like bringing up that scale for. That's bringing up what that scale is. I missed two panels that I really want to get. And then we'll get this top, because I super forgot about that. And we'll hit this. And so you could darken up your highlight color, but I kind of like the extreme that this is giving. Boom. Okay. Is edge highlight the opposite of pin washing? High points rather than low points? Yes, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, high point. Edge. So. Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. I'm trying to think about a better way to explain it. But really, all the raised edge areas is where you want to pay attention. Okay, so let's get this. We kind of messed up this droid here a little bit. Little droids, little pocket area. So, okay, so we're going to take this red. And we're going to very, very, very carefully, we're going to get most of the paint off of this. And we're going to have to go back in and fix it. So, we're just going to, all I'm doing is I'm just taking the brush and I'm kind of making a ring around the top of the droid. Because droids usually have a ring. And then I'm going to take some gray. Well, some gray black, right? I'm going to mark in where his eye is. All I'm doing is just taking the brush and I'm just making the point. And once I make the point, I'm kind of like smearing a circle. Right? Okay. So once your ring is done, then it doesn't have to be, and again, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're talking like super small stuff. And if you're worried about like making all of these perfect, then you don't need to be listening to me. You got what you got. You know what you need to do. So I'm just taking and I'm making little tiny lines to kind of break that circle apart. And then I'm slowly cleaning up all these little areas. And then we got a really, really quick insignia. Yeah, I know that we don't have the Jedi logo up yet. I'm still working on, we're still kind of getting this cockpit squared away. It keeps, like, because it's so transparent, it keeps darkening on us. So we want to keep, so every time this dries, I'm trying to put a new layer on until we get the right cockpit color. And then I mess up the cockpit color, and then I have to take black and darken that section down. Okay. But yes, so the Grand Republic logo. So if you know where the logo is, where you put the stuff on, and we do because we have something right here to help us. You can take a little X-Acto knife if you have putty, you can take putty too. If you use the X-Acto knife, you have to make sure that you're like crazy light with it, because you don't want to actually accidentally scratch the logo itself off. And this is exceptionally true if you're already painting something. Okay. So now we need to go back in with kind of a magic blue, Prussian blue mix, right? And really, and get in there and fix these little errors. Just be super careful, go around. Okay, and then we'll take like the white with just a little bit of gray in it. Oh, still have blue in there. Toothpick would be easier. Yeah. Yep. Toothpick would be easier. Toothpick is just as good. But don't tell me how to live my life. I saw my X-Acto knife and said, ah, that'll do. That'll do. Okay, but I mean, hopefully you're seeing that this just isn't that difficult, right? You can paint this. There's not some every piece of the ship we did tonight, and we did it in a couple hours. And I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna try and like just get these to be just a little darker. Everything that we did tonight, we did with we did within a couple hours. It didn't take very long. It's very achievable. So don't feel like this paint scheme is the hardest of the Jedi paint schemes. But even then, it's not that hard of a paint job. So I'm actually mixing some yellow with some white now, just so that we can really finish this cockpit up. White covers really well. Yellow really mixes with white super well. So because we're running a little bit late, a quick trick to get red to blend up nicely is to put some yellow mixed with white on there, then take your red orange combo and then just put that right over the top of it. And the yellow and white mixed together makes it pretty opaque. And then because it's opaque, the orange is tinting that white yellow and not trying to tint the red. And so you get a much cleaner, much faster blend. It's not, I don't know if it's necessarily the right way to do it, but it is man, I am tired of blending this up. And it does work. So there you go. Yep. So I mean, so there you go. We got Plo Koon all done up. We have his hyperspace ring popped on there. There are little things that maybe are worth cleaning up. Might be worth cleaning up this a little bit. I might do that kind of off camera. But for the most part, I mean, I'm pretty happy with how it came out. Seems good. I think Plo came out just super. Yeah, see, I was kind of thinking that might happen a little bit. Since we haven't sealed Plo yet, and that paint's still kind of wet, it hasn't really dried. It got kind of pulled off there, and that's all right. So, all right. So I have, so let's, as I'm finished, I need to fix this droid again really quick, because I can see a place where it kind of like splattered a little bit more than I intended. So while I'm fixing this droid, let's start doing all the cleanup stuff that you need to do. So thank you so much for hanging out with us. You are the most important part of this stream. Thank you to District Foundry for giving us these cool hyperspace rings that we can kind of play with and mess around with. Thank you to thank you to all you guys for viewing all that stuff. Are you gonna highlight the panel lines on the nose? Yeah, we probably should, shouldn't we? So we're not really going to highlight the panel lines on the nose. What we're going to do instead is we'll darken because the nose is pretty white. What we can do is we can just darken the recesses, and that will work for highlighting. That's a good idea. Good step. Good step to remember. Whoa. Okay. Because you can't get brighter than white. Once you hit white, you can't highlight up anymore. All you can do is darken stuff down. Yeah. So, yep, we'll work on the next thing. So, next week. So, thanks so much for being here. I appreciate it. I'll get some photos done of this, and we'll continue on. If you haven't liked the page yet, you should definitely hit the like button if you're on YouTube. If you're on Twitch, definitely hit that definitely hit that follow button. If you're interested and you have your extra Twitch Prime, you should definitely hit that subscribe button. It really helps all of us out. And for $5 a month, man, you get so much content. And if you don't decide, Twitch isn't really my thing, why don't you head over to patreon.com/Gold Squadron Podcast and maybe toss a couple bucks over there. You'll get some cool alternate art cards. Pretty much, you're always in the running for painted ships like this. Patreon is kind of our largest funding source, and so all that stuff, everything helps. And like I said, we're not going anywhere. We appreciate you guys. My goal with the paint cast, but our goal as Gold Squadron is to, really help the community and kind of make this a better place for everyone. So, thanks a ton, guys, for hanging out tonight. And with that, I'm going to get out of here. So, I'll see you guys later. Gold Squadron out.